This one's for couples. 13 embarrassing questions. Who overthinks everything? Who showers less? Who is always eating? Who is the lawbreaker?
They don't know. When they take a loved one, they don't know how much it really hurt to lose my only daughter I had. I said, if a man beating on you and pulling guns on you, sooner or later, he gonna kill you, and I'm gonna have to bury you. And it went just like I said.
This is Marisha Thomas, a 28-year-old mother of 8 from Cordova, Tennessee, whose life would be violently cut short by her boyfriend in a twisted and shocking act. But even more sinister than the murder was what he did next. He reported her missing. On the morning of June 30, 2022, the Memphis Police Department received a frantic 911 call from a neighbor claiming to have witnessed something horrifying. The caller described seeing his neighbor shoot his wife after she tried to escape, then drag her lifeless body into the garage and hide it. To make matters worse, he had also kidnapped a 6-year-old child. As investigators rushed to the scene, they discovered Marisha's body, but something didn't quite add up. Just moments before, they had received another emergency call, this time from a man claiming that someone had shot his wife and he was chasing the shooter. But nothing could prepare them for the chaotic web of lies, deception, and violence they were about to unravel. The twists that followed would shake them to their core. Before we jump into the devastating facts, let's rewind and understand how everything came to be.
Get out. Please get out. If he fighting you, pulling guns on you, get out the relationship, because sooner or later, like I told my daughter, he is going to kill you.
This is the story of Marisha Thomas, a 28-year-old mother who had dedicated her life to raising her children while tirelessly trying to overcome the challenges life had thrown her way. Marisha was a proud mother of 8, and despite what others might say about her having a large family, she loved her children more than anything in the world. In one of her social media posts, she wrote, "Her words were a testament to the fierce love and devotion she had for her children." Marisha's dedication to her children was her driving force. Her life had always revolved around them, ensuring they were well-fed, well-dressed, and loved. She found joy in the small moments, whether it was helping with homework, playing board games, or simply enjoying time together. She had always worked hard to make sure they had what they needed, often sacrificing her own desires for their well-being. She had proudly declared that her life had been forever transformed by the birth of her children. They were her world, and despite the challenges she faced, she made sure they knew they were loved and that nothing could come between them, or so she thought. But Marisha was more than just a mother. She was a woman with dreams, goals, and aspirations. She longed to build a life for herself and her family, to have the security and love she had always craved. Marisha had faced adversity in her life, yet she always pushed forward, never letting the weight of her circumstances hold her back. She was resilient, and her strength was her driving force. Her relationships weren't without their struggles, though. Marisha had been searching for love, someone who would accept not just her, but her children as well. She was determined to find a partner who would embrace her family, who could be a positive presence in their lives. It wasn't long before she thought she had found that person in 33-year-old Byron Pipkin. At first, Byron seemed to be the perfect match for Marisha. He was charming, attentive, and portrayed himself as someone who could help her build the life she had always dreamed of. He accepted her large family without hesitation, which was one of the reasons Marisha was drawn to him. Byron seemed like the person who could be a good father figure to her children, and he quickly became a regular presence in their lives. The relationship appeared to be moving in the right direction. Marisha and Byron shared intimate moments, celebrating milestones and cherishing each other's company. On social media, they posted pictures of their life together, playing games, attending parties, and even making cute, playful videos. They even had a daughter together. To the outside world, they seemed like a picture-perfect couple.
This one's for couples. 13 embarrassing questions. Who overthinks everything? Who showers less? Who is always eating? Who has a nicer butt? Who is more possessive? Who drools more? Who is a better driver? Who curses more? Who always sleeps in? Who is always on their phone? Who has the worst singing voice? Who takes the most selfies? Who is the lawbreaker?
However, despite the seemingly happy facade they put on, things were slowly changing behind the scenes. Byron had always been loving and caring when they first started dating, but over time they started to argue more frequently. The small disagreements turned into bigger fights, and the affectionate gestures began to fade. Marisha began to feel a shift in their dynamic, as if Byron was no longer the man she had fallen in love with. While Marisha had hoped for a partner who would be a reliable and loving presence in her children's lives, Byron began to show a different side. Little by little, his behavior became more controlling, and his patience grew thin. Still, Marisha held on, thinking things could get better. She loved him, and despite the tensions, she hoped that their bond would be strong enough to weather the storm. But what Marisha didn't know was that things were about to take a much darker turn, and the picture-perfect life she had envisioned was about to come crashing down. Although they shared moments of happiness, their relationship was overshadowed by the growing sense of unease that Marisha was beginning to feel. There were clues, small signs that something wasn't right, that Marisha was no longer comfortable in her own home.
On her social media, she began to post cryptic messages that hinted at the struggles she was facing with Byron. In one post, she said, "This message was a direct reflection of the emotional turmoil she was enduring, and it became her way of telling the world that she was done tolerating Byron's behavior." Another message read, "Marisha was making it clear that she was starting to reclaim control over her life, shedding toxic influences and prioritizing her own happiness." But despite the signs, Marisha remained in the relationship. She continued to hope things would improve, but deep down she knew something had to change. On June 30th, 2022, the tension that had been building for so long finally reached its breaking point. The argument that day would change everything. Marisha and Byron got into an argument inside the house they shared in Cordova, Tennessee. The reasons for the argument are unclear, but what is certain is that it escalated quickly. Marisha, feeling trapped and desperate to escape, decided to flee through the garage. But Byron was not going to let her go that easily. As Marisha tried to leave, Byron pulled out a gun and shot her in cold blood, striking her in the face. The shot rang out across the neighborhood, witnessed by a neighbor across the street. But a neighbor would witness something more horrifying. As Marisha collapsed in the front yard, Byron dragged her back into the garage, attempting to hide his crime. In a chilling moment, he then went inside and instructed their 6-year-old daughter to come with him before leaving the scene. This young child, likely confused and scared, would be forever impacted by the violence she had just witnessed. But Byron had a whole plan in store after his brutal killing. Byron then took the child to an acquaintance's home before he made a phone call to 911, pretending to be the victim. He claimed that someone else had shot his girlfriend, Marisha, and he was just following the person who had done it. Byron's calm demeanor during the call made it seem as if he was an innocent bystander, but the truth would soon come to light. Police, who had already received a call and statement from Byron's neighbor, who had called 911 immediately after witnessing the event, provided first-hand information to the authorities. They quickly realized that Byron was the shooter.
Blood Oaken Bucket Drive in Cordova overnight. Investigators say a woman was shot and killed inside this home.
It was shocking to come outside and see it because there's something we don't have in this neighborhood often.
The victim's family and friends stand on the sidelines embracing each other as officers carry out the investigation. People who live in the area tell me they heard several gunshots shortly after 11 o'clock last night. Neighbors say the victim lived in the house for years, and they say they are heartbroken to learn that one of their very own community members was killed.
She was very friendly. She used to walk her dogs around, speak to everybody. Everybody knew her. Very good person at heart.
Neighbors say they heard some sort of argument right before the shooting.
The search for Byron began almost immediately. As authorities tracked his movements, they learned that after he had left the scene, he went into hiding in a motel in South Memphis. When the police arrived at the motel, Byron barricaded himself inside a room, refusing to come out. After hours of negotiations, Byron finally surrendered peacefully, but not before forcing the authorities to take additional measures to secure his capture. Byron's arrest brought some relief to Marisha's family, but the fight for justice was far from over.
Following Byron Pipkin's arrest, the police began piecing together the events that led to Marisha's tragic death. His actions, those seemingly cold and calculated, painted a picture of an escalating domestic violence situation that had finally boiled over. But this wasn't the first time Byron had committed a crime. Authorities quickly learned of Byron's criminal history, which provided further insight into his capacity for violence. Byron had previous arrests dating back to 2012, including charges for aggravated assault and multiple incidents involving reckless behavior. His criminal record spoke volumes about his disregard for the law and his potential for violent outbursts. Yet, despite these previous arrests, he had somehow been able to maintain control over Marisha's life, manipulating her and keeping her in a toxic relationship. Investigators focused on the timeline of events leading up to the shooting. The 911 call made by Byron was one of the most crucial pieces of evidence. In it, he falsely claimed that an unknown individual had shot Marisha, and he was simply following the person who had committed the crime. But the witness testimony, along with the evidence collected from the crime scene, told a different story. The neighbor across the street had seen Byron shoot Marisha, and there was no question that he was the killer. The authorities discovered that while Byron had tried to present himself as an innocent victim, there was a much darker side to their relationship. Marisha's cryptic social media posts revealed the abuse she had been suffering for months, if not longer. She had finally reached her breaking point when she decided to stand up for herself and escape. But Byron's inability to accept her decision to leave became the spark for the horrific tragedy. What was even more chilling was that Byron's behavior after the murder suggested a cold indifference. He dragged Marisha back into the garage after she collapsed in the yard, seemingly trying to cover up his actions. His decision to leave the scene with his 6-year-old daughter further demonstrated the reckless disregard for human life and the emotional trauma he caused his own child, who had witnessed her mother's murder. Byron's attempt to frame someone else for the crime only deepened the sense of manipulation and deceit that had characterized their relationship with Marisha. He was not only trying to escape the consequences of his actions, but was also attempting to control the narrative, painting himself as an innocent victim. Byron Pipkin was charged with first-degree premeditated murder, aggravated kidnapping, and multiple firearm possession charges. His arrest marked the beginning of a lengthy legal process as the prosecution worked to build their case against him. Given his previous criminal history and the overwhelming evidence that pointed to him as the killer, the prosecution's case seems strong.
But Byron's defense team was preparing to argue that the shooting had been a crime of passion, an act committed in the heat of the moment. The defense would likely claim that the argument between Marisha and Byron had escalated unexpectedly, leading to an unintentional act of violence. However, the prosecution was determined to prove that this was no crime of passion. It was a premeditated act of murder. The prosecution's case rested on the fact that Byron had deliberately shot Marisha while she was trying to escape, an indication that he was in complete control of the situation. The 911 call he made, in which he falsely claimed that someone else had shot Marisha, also worked against him, showing that he was attempting to manipulate the situation and evade responsibility. With his arrest and the mounting evidence, Byron was facing serious charges. But the question remained, would the jury believe the prosecution's case, or would they be swayed by the defense's argument? Marisha's family was devastated by her murder, and the emotional toll it took on her loved ones was profound. Her mother, who had already lost so much in her life, was heartbroken over the loss of her daughter. The community of Cordova, Tennessee, was equally shaken by the crime.
Topping the news at 10 tonight, family and friends come together to remember a Memphis mother of 8 who shot and killed. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shay Arthur. Investigators believe the woman's boyfriend is responsible. WREG's Jordan James was the only reporter at a vigil tonight. He joins us now live in the studio with how Marquisha Thomas's loved ones are coping with her death. Jordan, I can imagine this was very emotional.
Yes, Shay, as you would imagine, this loss hits close to home for many of them. On a weekend that is supposed to be filled with joy has turned into sorrow for those who knew and loved Marquisha Thomas.
The banks of the Mississippi River.
What's up? Good.
Loved ones have come together to remember Marquisha Thomas.
She was always 10 toes down.
A piece of me left when my little sister left, for real. Couldn't do nothing but cry.
The mother of 8 was killed last week when police say her boyfriend Byron Pipkin shot her and dragged her body into the garage and drove off.
They don't know. When they take a loved one, they don't know how much it really hurt to lose my only daughter I had.
Prior to Marcus Briscoe's child being taken away, he says the warning signs were there and his deepest fear came true last week.
I had told her, I said, if a man beating on you and pulling guns on you, sooner or later, he gonna kill you and I'm gonna have to bury you. And it went just like I said.
Pipkin ended up being arrested after a tip led officers to a South Memphis motel where they took him into custody.
Get out, please get out. If he fighting you, pulling guns on you, get out the relationship, because sooner or later, like I told my daughter, he is gonna kill you.
Known for its suburban tranquility, the town had never experienced such a violent act, and the murder of Marquisha sent ripples of shock and sadness through the local community. Neighbors who had known Marquisha and Byron described the couple as seemingly happy, but expressed concern about the tension that had started to show in recent months. Marquisha's friends and family were determined that her death would not be in vain. They started a campaign to raise awareness about domestic violence and the need for better protection for women in abusive relationships.
He fighting you, pulling guns on you, get out the relationship, because sooner or later, like I told my daughter, he is gonna kill you.
They encouraged others who might be experiencing similar situations to seek help before it was too late. They also began a GoFundMe campaign to help cover the costs of Marquisha's funeral and support her children, who were now without their mother. As Byron's trial approached, the community continued to rally behind Marquisha's family, pushing for justice to be served. Would they finally get the closure they deserved? In February 2024, a Shelby County jury found Byron Pipkin guilty on all charges after a week-long trial. As the trial continued, Marquisha's family remained hopeful that justice would be served. The final chapter of this tragic story was yet to be written, but they were determined to see it through to the end. In April 2024, after weeks of legal proceedings, Byron Pipkin's trial came to a close. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for several hours, but in the end, they returned with a guilty verdict. Byron Pipkin was convicted of first-degree murder for the death of Marquisha Thomas. The judge sentenced Byron Pipkin to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in emotions, relief and sorrow all at once. Marquisha's family, though grateful for the guilty verdict, knew that no amount of justice could bring their beloved Marquisha, daughter and sister, back. The guilty verdict was important, but it didn't erase the heartache and pain they would carry for the rest of their lives. While the legal battle was over, Marquisha's family knew that their journey was just beginning. Their advocacy for domestic violence victims had only just started, and they were committed to making sure Marquisha's legacy lived on. Marquisha Thomas's story is one of tragedy, but also one of strength and resilience. It is a reminder that domestic violence can happen to anyone, regardless of their background or circumstances. Marquisha loved her children fiercely and wanted nothing more than to build a better life for them. But her life was stolen by a man who couldn't handle losing control over her. Marquisha's family is determined that her death will serve as a wake-up call to those trapped in abusive relationships. They urge everyone to recognize the signs of abuse and seek help before it's too late.
He fighting you, pulling guns on you, get out the relationship, because sooner or later, like I told my daughter, he is gonna kill you.
If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please reach out to a trusted friend, family member, or a domestic violence hotline. No one should have to endure abuse, and there is always help available. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.